If you're using skill checks, pass or fail in Dungeons & Dragons, you're doing it wrong. Maybe. It depends on the skill check, depends on the game. But I like to use dynamic skill checks because it'll give you as a dungeon master more ability for storytelling, and it gets rid of the pass or fail idea. The question is though, how do we use dynamic DCs, dynamic skill checks, to not just be pass or fail? I've got 5 things that will help you do this without overwhelming your brain. First things first, clarification. There is no right way to play Dungeons & Dragons. Every table is different. The things that I give you here in this video are going to be used on a per table basis, which means if you like what you see, use it. If you don't like what you see, don't. The goal is that I want to get rid of, and this is more of the Pathfinder way of doing things when it comes to dynamic skill checks, without the rules. I don't like rules dictating how much or how little. It depends on the situation. This is how I use the Dungeons & Dragons method of pass or fail for DC and why. The first thing we're going to talk about is proficiency versus non-proficiency, meaning this. A level 1 wizard has a proficiency bonus of 2, which means if you are proficient in arcane, you get 2 plus your intelligence, which may be 2, which is a plus 4. A plus 4 as a trained wizard in the realm of arcane. Now let's take the rogue, who maybe have a 0, but still has a proficiency bonus of 2 and does not take arcane. That means that a wizard only has a 20% more likely chance to hit a DC than a rogue does. I do not like that. But players love to be able to roll because just in case, what if I get the 16? And they say that's what the proficiency bonus is for. So this is to combat that. What this is this simply states that if you roll and you can give me a good reason you would know that skill or something about that skill, if you succeed and you know a little bit. If you fail and know nothing, but I still allow you to roll. Now, in my personal games, if you're trying to do a knowledge-based check on something, I don't let you roll. If I do let you roll, I have an entire chart for that. That's a different thing. But dynamic DCs state this, that if you are rolling, and let's just say you are a wizard, and the DC is 15, and you roll a 10, and you get 14, you may not know everything, but I'm going to give you a good selection of the information that was there. Let's say that you're trying to figure out what trap is above a door, or what arcane ruin is on the floor, and you roll a 14, it's a DC 15. Well, let's just say it's a warding trap. Well, I'm going to tell you that you recognize that that arcane symbol was designed for some type of ward. You don't remember what, but it is a warding style. Now, that could be protection, that could be fireball, that could be a ward trap. There's so many things that could be, but I'm giving you a hint. What it actually is, that's for you to decide. I'm not telling you. Now, let's take it a step forward. Let's say that you rolled a 6, and you have plus 4, you get a 10. We are now 5 points away. Well, the arcane symbol, you definitely know, was something you used to see around when you were practicing, magic that held magic. So it definitely is holding a status effect, or it could be a ward, but it's definitely there to react to the environment. Who knows what that may be? But that's the idea of the dynamic DCs. The further away you get, and if you roll something that's low as a 5, you don't have any idea what it is. There's a varying effect compared to the person that has proficiency. Non-proficiency. Dynamic DCs also mean there's guaranteed success. What I mean by that, if you're trying to do the impossible, if you're trying to convince the king to help you do something, and it's a DC of 40, and even though you have persuasion and all that good stuff, when you roll your natural 20, there's some level of success. It could be being in good favor with the king. It could be that they find your antics amusing and they like you a little bit more. It could be that you've actually persuaded them to be kind to you when they were not. There's something that happens with that natural 20. A nat 20 does not guarantee success. You said, I want to get the king to make me rule his kingdom. A nat 20 doesn't make that happen, but it leaves something in good favor. If I'm going to have you roll, especially on the dynamics DCs, it means there's always some level of success. A 15 would lead something less, a 10 would lead to something less, and then there's some point of failure. In the most cases, when someone is proficient in a skill and they are good at what they do, very rarely is there just a straight level of failure. In fact, there's always some level of success. Now, let's say a rogue is trying to pick a lock under duress, and they try to pick the lock, and they don't pick it this round. Well, if let's say they're in combat, right? I say, well, you can attempt again. You're pretty sure you figured out what has. You'll get advantage on your next roll. That's cool. They failed this round. If they continue to try, I'm going to give them advantage on the next round. The goal is to try to push them forward towards that success, but the rogue is not in combat. Everyone else is. Protect the rogue. He's getting the door open. And, it allows them to fail and not just fail consistently. And so there's some level of success even in failure when I use dynamic DCs. It's not always the case. How do you spread success on a dynamic DC? Is it every 2? Is it every 3? Is it every 5? This is why I don't believe in the rules of dynamic DCs. If you're playing a newer party and the DC is 20 and they have a maximum of a +4 or +5 to be able to do that, and they hit a 20, great. They succeeded, they get all the information, they get all the rewards of that successful skill check. If they hit a 19, I give them something, something pretty close. And then the further they get away, the less that I give them. It also depends on how much of the story this DC, this skill check can progress. And maybe if they roll a 19, because I'm using dynamic, I just use pass or fail, it's close enough. I'll go ahead and allow them to have a successful skill check. But I may leave out one key detail. Yes, you do know that this path goes down, this is the way out, but you missed the marker on the wall that says it's protected by the basilisk. I showed you the way out, but I didn't warn you that the basilisk is there. You missed that word. You didn't understand the elvish part of that. That's where the dynamic disease is yours to decide as a dungeon master, allowing you to always make sure that you're giving the appropriate amount of success to your players. How do you use a dynamic DC with a physical skill check? Imagine climbing a wall. It's slippery. You're climbing up. The rogue is making his way and he fails a skill check. Okay. The first skill check fails. The arm slips. Roll another check. You held on with the other arm. Now, maybe it was a climb check. Maybe that last one was a dex save, right? Now, we're going to start again. You do another climb check. You're going, you're going, you're going. When you have a failure, it doesn't mean you completely fail. Imagine trying to jump a Kloss ravine. The DC is 15, and you roll a 13. Well, you don't make it all the way up, but you slam into it. Make a dex save. Make an acrobatics check. You manage to hold on and push yourself up. You did not make the jump. You took 1d6 bludgeoning damage as you plowed into the side of the cliff, and then you make another check to complete. I don't like save and suck. It's my least favorite thing in the world. So you can always have something like that to help push that forward. What about when you succeed by a huge amount and you're using dynamic DC? The DC is 15, you've got proficiency, you've got expertise, and you hit a 35. I give you extra information. When you have a critical success, which is, in my opinion, exceeding by beyond 5, it means not only do you do it, but maybe you're picking a lock and you'll always be able to, you remember how to pick that lock, which gives you advantage on that style of locks for the rest of the campaign. Now, you have to remember, though, what type of lock is, who the maker was, and is it a prominent maker and does it show up? There's lots of little bitty things you can do. But here's my question to you. How do you use critical successes when it comes to DCs? Do you allow the parties more information, or do you just say it's a success and move on with the game? I like the players to feel special when they're good at what they do, right? You stealth so well that you're like the wind. Nobody sees you. You end up right behind the guard, not even aware you're there. The moon itself couldn't have seen you in this night. I love that idea. How would you use critical successes? What do you think? Dynamic skills checks in Dungeons and Dragons allow for storytelling. It doesn't mean that there's a concrete way, and there's no rule set to where the dynamics fall, allowing you as the dungeon master to craft a story that helps progress the plot even when the players are failing. And when you do this, the players never know when they succeed or when they fail because they're always getting information. Sometimes it's not complete. Sometimes they don't make the jump, but they don't die falling down the cliff. It's always pushing the story forward. When your skill is not set and then it's not crystal clear amounts apart and you allow yourself the ability to tell stories based upon the skill checks, it adds an entire RP level to skill checks that I love. This is why I love dynamic skills so much in Dungeons & Dragons. And I hope you found this video useful on the ways that we use them and some of the philosophies behind it. There's no concrete way. So while I say if you're not using dynamic skill checks, you're using them wrong, that means I'm using them wrong. Because sometimes it is pass or fail, but there's one or two of them. So how do you use dynamic skill checks, or do you just consider this Pathfinder? Thank you as always, guys. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment below. And as always, we will see you next time.